Let me ask just one final one, if I can, then about Dianne Feinstein. She just announced after 30 years that she's going to be retiring at the end of this time, her time in the Senate. Serving California first, if you have any comment on that, and separately, acknowledging the responsibilities you have when you're standing behind that podium, your thoughts on the 3 Californians that have already announced their intention to run for her seat.
So I'll take the first question first, which is, look, the president looks forward to congratulating Senator Feinstein on her historic and remarkable career. I just mentioned earlier about the assault weapons ban, that they worked together just 30 years ago. So clearly, the president sees the senator as a friend and as a colleague that he's been able to get big things done, and I think that's incredibly important. He sees her as a longtime friend, and he deeply respects all of the collaboration that they have been able to do on historic legislations over the years. As I mentioned, the federal legislation on banning assault weapons. Pardon me. Look, we respect all of the talented officials in California who are expressing interest in running for the seat. And again, as you know, as you stated at the top of your question, I am prohibited from saying anything more on any upcoming races. But again, these are elected officials that we've worked very closely with over the past couple of years, and the president has gotten to know. I'm just not going to comment on their particular, wanting interest in running for that Senate seat.
I don't know how I do this. Okay, well, thank you. And first, of course, as I'm sure you all heard, our wonderful colleague from California, Senator Feinstein, has announced that she is not seeking another term. We're all glad she's remaining with us in the Senate and will be fighting the fight for the next year and a half. Quiet. And she'll be fighting the fight with us for the next year and a half. But she's a legend in California as the first woman senator, a legend in this Senate. She was the leader on so many different issues: assault weapons, environment, women's rights, and so much else. She approached everything studiously and carefully, but she had passion that accompanied her detailed knowledge of the facts. And she was able to convince people on both sides of the aisle to go along with her on issue after issue after issue. I first got to know her when she carried the assault weapons bill in the Senate. I was a Congress member and carried it in the House, and the guidance she gave of how to get it through the House, the help she gave by lobbying various House members, was just incredible. So she's an amazing person. She spoke at our caucus. She gave a very heartwarming and teary address because she talked about her husband and how she so regretted his loss. And he was her true partner. We all knew Dick Blum and loved him as well. And she got a standing ovation that lasted minutes and minutes and minutes, one of the longest I've ever seen, which shows the love that our caucus and our country have for this wonderful, wonderful leader and legend, Dianne Feinstein. Okay. Now, also welcome back. Happy Valentine's Day, Amy.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chuck.
I guess I forgot the red.
Yeah.
We had a great, I'm happy to be joined by Senators Durbin, Klobuchar, and Padilla. We had a great lunch. We discussed many topics, but of course one of the biggest is judges. Today we reached a milestone. We confirmed the 100th judicial nominee of the Biden administration as Judge Mendez Miro. 100 judges, that's more than in either of the 2 previous administrations at this point. 100 judges who will bring balance and excellence back to the federal judiciary, who will be a great countervailing force against some of the hard-right MAGA judges that President Trump and the Republicans put in. There are 100 judges who are going to expand diversity and dynamism of the bench. There are 100 judges who embody the very best, not just of our judicial system, but of our country: experience, level-headedness, and fidelity to the Constitution. So today's a good day to reflect on these lasting accomplishments. This is one of our legacies. We talk about all the bills we passed this summer, but this is one of the most important and lasting legacies that Congress and this Congress, the past Congress and this Congress, will have. Today, because of Senate Democrats, our federal judiciary is far more balanced, more diverse, more experienced, than the one the country had 2 years ago. The bench now has more public defenders, civil rights lawyers, environmental rights lawyers than we've had before. Of the 100 judges we've confirmed, listen to this, 76 are women. You say, well, why is more than a majority women? Because women had been left out for decades, and now we're restoring that. We're restoring that. Same thing with people of color. 68 are people of color, 33 black judges, 25 black women judges, 21 from Hispanic backgrounds. We are all so proud of all of that. We've also confirmed the first Muslim American and first Native American federal judge in history. You say, this is the first time? Yep, but it's there. And then, of course, we confirmed the first black woman ever to sit on the United States Supreme Court, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who, by the way, was also the first public defender on the Supreme Court. This morning we received, let's go to the next subject. This morning we received an all-senators briefing on the unknown objects shot down over the past week. In the briefing, the military and intelligence people outlined their approach to each of the 4 objects. We're learning more about these objects hour by hour, day by day, and we're continuing to work with Canada to recover the objects shot down. What I can say after our briefing is that the defense and intelligence agencies are focused like a laser on gathering every piece of the information, analyzing that new information they have, and coming up with comprehensive actions that we have to take now and on into the future. So it was a very, very good briefing. What we saw over the weekend is that if this administration sees any threat to the American people or American interests, they will take appropriate action. And I believe the action they took in all 4 of the objects that we've seen have been appropriate. The military and intelligence agencies are working around the clock to get a more comprehensive picture of what's happening and recovering more evidence. Now, we still have questions about why they didn't discover these balloons sooner, these objects sooner, and balloons. Senator Tester is going to lead our caucus in investigating this. It's a good question. We need to answer it. Okay. And finally, we concluded with some happy and sad news about Dianne Feinstein and her great legacy. I'm going to conclude on this Valentine's Day with some very happy news. This is Noah. Sorry. Noah's my 4-year-old. He's on my head. This is Henry Alexander Wayland Schumer, age 5 days, with his grandpa. And we are very, very, very happy. I'm not calling on Durbin, but I will. Senator Durbin.
Very nice. Congratulations, Chuck.
Mr. President, yesterday our wonderful colleague from California, Senator Dianne Feinstein, announced that she will retire at the end of her term. I'm careful not to throw the word legend around too often in this chamber, as it truly befits so few. But Dianne Feinstein is precisely that. She's a legend. She's a legend in California, where she shattered innumerable glass ceilings as the first woman senator from the state. And we even forget how even 20, 30 years ago, the barriers which are still in front of women were even stronger. So it took a strong, tough, resolute woman to break them, and she did. She's a legend here in the Senate, the longest-serving woman senator in U.S. history. She built a reputation as an expert legislator and a leader on so many issues: gun violence, the environment, women's rights, so much more. I first got to know Dianne when she led the effort to pass the 1994 ban on assault weapons in the Senate. I led it in the House. I've always been amazed by the sheer depth of her knowledge on the issues and how careful she is about learning all of the facts before she goes forward. And then her seemingly innate ability to convince people on both sides of the aisle to work together. That's why her list of accomplishments is so long. The assault weapons ban, protecting oversight authority during the investigation into U.S. torture, championing the Violence Against Women Act, and the list goes on and on and on. But perhaps her greatest legacy is how she blazed a trail for women and girls everywhere. Today, There are 25 women serving in this chamber. There are 25 women serving in this chamber, all of whom stand on Dianne's shoulders. So we're all very glad we have another year and a half with her to fight the good fight. And I know she'll use that time to fiercely advocate for women's rights in all aspects of life and unwaveringly represent the people of California.
Yesterday, the longest-serving female senator in American history announced she plans to retire at the end of her record 5th full term. My good friend Dianne Feinstein made major history in 1992 when she became the first woman to represent California in the Senate. But, of course, both her knack for notching historic firsts and her commitment to her fellow Golden Staters were very well established by the time she arrived here in Washington. Dianne's career in politics began, where many do, at the local level. But for Dianne, that happened to mean shattering glass ceilings in a major metropolis. She was the first woman to serve as president of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. While in office, she endured a failed attempt to bomb her home. Then her predecessor as mayor was assassinated. That's when Dianne became the city's first female mayor. Then she badly beat an attempted recall. By the time this trailblazer became Senator Feinstein, there was frankly nothing that could faze her. Dianne has been the top Democrat on the Rules Committee, the Intelligence Committee, and the Judiciary Committee. For decades, she's been one of our country's most formidable legislators across numerous subjects. And somehow, amid it all, this battle-tested veteran stateswoman has maintained a genuine warmth and collegiality that cuts through even the tensest debates. Now, Elaine and I have been fortunate to count Dianne a friend for many years. Elaine and Dick served on a board together in the private sector years ago. Frequently, when Dick was in town, the four of us would go out to dinner. We had a genuine friendship. So, as you can imagine, we hated to lose Dick recently. But the good news is Dianne will be here for...
One other overnight, Senator Feinstein asked that the Democratic caucus temporarily appoint somebody else to the Judiciary Committee in order to help with the backlog of judicial nominees. And there are increasing calls for her to resign from members of the California delegation, other Democrats. First, to her decision to temporarily step down, what does the White House make of that? And the broader calls for her to step down.
So as it relates to the committee, I will say that the president, is deeply appreciative of her support for his extraordinary, qualified, and diverse nominees. So that is something that he is thankful to her for. What I will repeat is that the President and the First Lady wish Senator Feinstein the very best and a speedy recovery. And look, I'll go back to what the President said when the Senator announced her upcoming retirement very recently, not too long ago. And he talked about her late husband, Richard, and how he became very close friends with her late husband, Richard, and clearly the Senator, and really appreciated how they've worked together very closely during his time as Senator. And they worked closely on the 1994 crime bill, and other important issues that matter to the American people. And he truly respects and appreciates her commitment to public service. I just don't have anything else to add to that.
Ryan, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a question for you and Vice Chair Lieu. Since both of you are part of the California delegation, I just want to get your thoughts on Senator Dianne Feinstein. You had two caucus members last week call for her to resign. Do you share their view?
I think it's up to Senator Feinstein to decide her own timeline. She is a legend in California politics and a legend in the Senate chamber. The work that she has done specifically on gun violence should be commended by all of us, and the work that she has put in over the last few decades representing the people of San Francisco and the people of California. But I will say that our expectation as House Democrats is that every senator is going to need to participate as we stave off House Republican attempts to get closer to default. So I look forward to her coming back, and I look forward to her service, but she should get to choose that timeline.
I agree with Chairman Aguilar, and let me just add that shingles can be quite debilitating. If you're over the age of 50, you should talk to your doctor about getting the shingles vaccine. And in America, we don't tell people to resign because they got shingles.
Question? Here.
Some House Democrats' favorite House Republican, George Santos, announced he's running for re-election. Curious for your reaction and the likelihood or possibility of Democrats taking back that seat next year.
Obviously, that's probably a question better equipped for. I think I'd have stronger thoughts if we were across the street. But as somebody who occasionally looks at FEC reports, I think I'd like our chances in that type of election. But broadly, George Santos is just one of the extreme individuals. He just has a less of a comparatively less of a passing relationship to the truth, and that's saying a lot to some of the others. But I think as we get closer to November, as we get closer to filing deadlines, I look forward to New York Democrats' attempts to win that seat and others within the state. But clearly, it's a very flawed individual who's under investigation from a number of entities, and we'll let the political chips fall where they may.
Vice Chair Lou said that you all want to work on actual things that matter, like the debt ceiling. I'm wondering, what conversations are you having with House Republicans, and are you facilitating talks?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Corinne. What is the White House's reaction to Mitch McConnell saying that Republicans would block attempts by Democrats to temporarily replace Dianne Feinstein on the Senate Judiciary Committee?
Look, I want to be very clear here. Let me first say that and the President and the First Lady has offered up, a speedy recovery. As you have heard me say many times, that Senator Feinstein is not just a former colleague of the President, but a friend. And so was her late husband, Richard. And so certainly we wish her a speedy recovery. And look, this is a decision for her to make when it comes to the future, her future. That is something that she gets to make and should be allowed to do that. And what we know and what the President has said is she's had a impressive career. He's worked alongside her with dealing with the assault ban weapons. That's something that they worked on together. And the work that she's done as a senator has certainly lifted up this country. As it relates to, I'm not going to speak to every senator or every elected official that makes a comment. But look, what we believe, when you think about what Democrats are doing or what their request is, this is a request that is, we think that is reasonable. This is something that Senator Feinstein asked for. This is her request. And it is flat wrong to ask to seek partisan advantage from health issues of a colleague, right? The American people reject that kind of scorched earth type of behavior or approach to governing. Again, this is something that she put forward, and this was her request. So I'll leave it there.
If her seat on the committee is not filled while she's away with her illness, I mean, is it going to hurt the White House's ability to get judges appointed in the Senate?
So look, what we appreciate the efforts that we have seen in confirming judges, and what we believe, look, confirming those judges who uphold the rule of law is a top priority for the President. Senators should not needlessly deny community judges who can ensure accountability for criminal acts. And so that's what we believe, and I'll just leave it there.
Go ahead, Manu.
If Senator Feinstein is not able to return this work period, do you think she should consider resigning?
Look, I spoke to Senator Feinstein just a few days ago, and she and I are both very hopeful that she will return very soon.
And if she doesn't,
Yes, yes. Next one.
You're hopeful. That doesn't sound like there's a plan. And would you be willing to engage in horse trading, say, over the blue slip issue to get something done if you're that bottled up and committed?
Let me first say again, I spoke to Senator Feinstein just last Friday, and she and I are very hopeful she'll return soon. As for blue slips, Senator Durbin and the Judiciary Committee are considering it. Yes.
Have you selected or thought of who you would like to replace her?
Ben Cardin. Yes. This afternoon. Yes. Yes.
Earlier today, SEC Chairman Gary Gensler said that if we don't raise the debt ceiling, it's going to cause one heck of a mess in the capital markets. There's word that the House Republicans are trying to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act and the compromise in the package.
Look.
So do you find that there could be compromise? Do you know what the compromise could be?
Yeah, the compromise is very simple. It's what's been done successfully the last 3 times, twice under President Trump, once when both houses were Republican, once when one house was Republican, one Democrat, and then under Biden. And that is a bipartisan solution with no hostage-taking, no brinksmanship, and we pass a clean debt ceiling. There's certainly time to discuss budget cuts, tax increases. That's called the budget process, and it should never be attached to debt ceiling. That's dangerous. And in the direction that Speaker McCarthy is headed in could lead us into default, which would have huge damage to the American people in terms of higher costs. Prices will go up in so many different things. In terms of an economy tanking, as was said before, and in terms of lost jobs. Go ahead. Clean debt ceiling is the way to go. Yes.
Do you expect to hold any votes anytime soon on legislation addressing the 6-week abortion ban in Florida or the judge's decision invalidating the FDA?
Look, this decision is an awful decision, and Democrats are looking at every way we can to limit its harmful, terrible effects on women. Yes.
The House tomorrow is going to pass a bill that would overturn local D.C. laws similar to the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Do you want to see that bill come up for a vote in the Senate, or are you going to try to block it?
Well, we can't block it. They would have a right to bring it up. But this bill, which the President has already said he's vetoed, has some very reasonable reforms. It does not go as far as the George Floyd bill does, and I expect we'll be able to block it. Thank you, everybody.
On Senator Dianne Feinstein, the President has obviously known her and worked with her for decades. Has he had an opportunity to talk with her to see how she's doing?
I don't have a call to read out at this time. What I can say is just reiterate what the President has said and the First Lady, wishing her a speedy recovery. As you know, they put that statement out some time ago. And also what else he said is that he sees her as a friend. He was very close to very close to the Senator's husband as well, late husband, Richard. And they have a close friendship, and they worked, as you just stated, very closely together while he was a senator. And she has the work that she has done. I was just talking about banning assault weapons. That was something that he partnered with her on. The work that she has done as senator has made the lives of Americans better. Don't have a call to read out, but he's been very thankful for her partnership and her leadership in the Senate over the years.
What does the White House believe that Senate Democrats should do now that Senate Republicans have said they're not going to support temporarily replacing Senator Feinstein on the Senate Judiciary Committee?
So let me just first state that this request was made by, as you know, Senator Feinstein. This is something that she had asked for the committee, for the Senate to do, and the President will continue to say that he hopes all senators in both parties really respect and honor her request. Look, I kind of said this yesterday, and I'll say it again. It is flat wrong to seek partisan advantage from health issues of a colleague. The American people reject that kind of scorched earth approach to governing, and so in order to uphold the rule of law, it is imperative that we move expeditiously without unnecessary delay, and that's how the President sees this moving forward. But again, as you know, this was her request. This is something that she asked for.
But it appears they're not going to go along with that request, and this is having a profound impact on the ability of the Senate to confirm the president's judicial nominees. So what should happen now?
Look, we're gonna leave that to the Senate. The president has been very clear that they should move forward. This is a request that she asked for, and it is a reasonable request. And again, I'm going to leave that to the Senate, and this should not be a partisan issue. This should just not be a partisan issue.
So how long should this position remain vacant? Is there a point at which, given the number of nominations that are piling up, that the White House believes that it's the senator's obligation, given that she's been gone for a couple months now, has no timeline for returning, that for the good of the people of California and also for her party, it needs to consider next steps?
So look, it is her decision to make when it relates to anything about her future. That is for her to make. The president has been very clear about that. And it is, this is something that the Senate all senators have to deal with, and not make this a partisan issue. Make it about make it about the people. Make it about the people of California, the people across the country. This is important to move forward. The American people do not want a scorched earth approach. We've been very clear. They were very clear about that when we looked at the midterm results. And so again, this should not be a partisan approach. We have to make sure that these issues are dealt with on behalf of the American people.
Given Senator Feinstein's critical vote and any chance of passing a clean debt limit hike, as the president has said he would like, is he concerned about her prolonged absence further hindering Democrats in the Senate now that it's been budgeted?
Look, we wish the senator a speedy recovery. I don't have anything else to share beyond that. As I talked about the close relationship that he has had with Senator Feinstein and the work that they've done over the years, not just with him as a president, but also when he was a senator. He appreciates her, thinks that she has, has really helped change a lot of important critical policies to the American people. I don't have anything to say specifically about when she's coming back or what that looks like, but we certainly wish her a speedy recovery.
Just one more. Last week, the president signed an executive order authorizing the use of the National Guard at the southern border in support of counter-narcotics efforts. Can you explain, was that a precursor to today's announcement on the troops?
I'm not gonna get into the timeline of it. As you know, we've been making preparations ahead of the lifting of Title 42. We've been very clear about that. You've heard from the Department of State, DHS as well, on what they had a press conference to lay out what that's going to look like. So there's been many processes and plans that have been put into place. Don't have any specifics to any timeline that you're asking.
Come to order. My apologies for coming in a few minutes late, but Senator Graham and I were in the Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense with the Secretary of Defense and ran over a few more minutes. I believe I speak for all of us with the feelings of relief and support for our colleague, Senator Feinstein, who has returned to Washington. I know that she's been through some significant health challenges, and we all wish her the very best. We have a number of items on today's agenda, including 7 judicial nominees who have previously been held over. I intend to call them shortly, and if Senator Feinstein arrives, we may be able to take up those additional nominees very quickly. The first nominee we're going to vote on today is Jeremy Daniel, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois, rated unanimously well qualified by the American Bar Association. I could recount his service to our country in the Marine Corps and all of his work with the U.S. Attorney's Office and other agencies, but I think most of you are well aware of it. We also have 4 bills on the agenda that relate to the critically important issue of online safety for our children. S1199, the Stop CSAM Act, S1080, the Cooper-Davis Act, S412, the SHIELD Act, and S1170, the Project Safe Childhood Act. After we consider nominations, we will move to the Stop CSAM Act, which would make critical reforms to better protect our kids online. Since I released a discussion draft of the bill in February, my staff has reached out to every office on the committee and to outside stakeholders to solicit multiple rounds of input. I believe this is a critically important piece of legislation, and I invite the committee to join me to make it better if possible. I think we can. I intend to offer a manager's amendment that addresses the issues that have been raised, and I'll further discuss the bill when we turn to it. With that, I turn to Ranking Member Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I too want to welcome Senator Feinstein back and glad to have her. As to the legislation you just indicated, we've been working well, I think, with you and your team, and we have some amendments that I think will perfect the bill. This whole idea of protecting children from online predators and having images used that follow them to the grave is a worthy endeavor, and we have some amendments that we think will make the bill better. We will continue to work with you and our Democratic colleagues, see if the committee can come up with a package that could go eventually to the floor and show the public that we not only are concerned about social media abuses, we're actually going to do something about it. And so I look forward to this continued effort.
We'll have a voice vote in just a moment. I want to welcome back our colleague, Senator Dianne Feinstein. So the question is on the passage of S 1170 as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, and the bill will be favorably reported to the floor. We have 2 or 3 nominations. Charnel B.L. Kindred.
Thank you so much. New Hampshire's Michael Delaney was not among the stalled nominees the Judiciary Committee voted on today with Senator Dianne Feinstein back in Washington. Does President Biden still support him among apparent concerns from some Democrats? And what is the White House doing to get him over the finish line?
So look, we take our nominees very seriously. The president clearly puts forth nominees that he believes are ready and equipped for the job. And so, of course, we're always going to be make sure that we do everything that we can, having conversations with the senators and their staff to try to move our nominees through. So we are committed for certain. You had another question in there. And then you mentioned Senator Feinstein. We're glad to see her back. As you know, she is a longtime friend of the president, and he's been wishing her a speedy recovery, and it's glad to see her back in the Senate. And I'll leave that there. I'm trying to figure.
4 bills, Senator Feinstein.
I just wanted to say one thing, and that's about cops on the beat. I was mayor of San Francisco for 9 years. There was no program more favorable with people than police on the streets. They got to know them. There was a positive relationship. The crime rate went down. And I came away from the job really understanding the necessary for the juncture. And anything we can do to help, I think we should.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman.
I agree with you completely.
Note the presence of a quorum. We will now vote to report the Defense Appropriations Bill favorably, subject to amendment. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Feinstein.
Say aye.
Pardon me?
Aye.
Yeah.
Just say
I would like to support a yes vote on this. It provides $823 billion. That's an increase of $26 billion for the Department of Defense. And it funds priorities submitted.
Yeah, just say aye.
Okay, just
Great.
aye.
Thank you.
Senator Durbin, Senator Reed.
We have a member of the United States Congress who's in the Senate, who is in the Senate for one reason, and that is because his party stayed united regardless of the actual facts surrounding this individual. And his name is John Fetterman. This is no disrespect to the man. He had a stroke. Strokes can be debilitating. But as a member of the House, I'm telling you, this job is hard. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort. I come home, my wife is like, "Yay, you're home. Let's do this." And I'm like, I need a day. Like I'm tired. And I'm healthy. I could imagine what it is if you're recovering from a stroke. You're not capable of doing the job. But his party did not care. And they supported him anyway. That's wrong. It's wrong. Dianne Feinstein. This is a tragedy. Everybody's seen the pictures. It's wrong. This is not Republican, Democrat. It is wrong. She has serious health issues. It's wrong. But they don't bat an eye. I'm gonna leave the president alone for a moment. I bash him enough. But it's wrong. It is physically, it's easy for everybody to see how wrong this is. They don't even bat an eye. They're like, "Oh yeah, there's nothing to see here." As a Republican member, and I try not to have town halls, I'm keeping as much partisanship out of this because this is a public town hall for everybody. But as a Republican, listen, man, when the primaries are over, we're one party. We're one party. One.
This is where we are. I'm being very honest. We're in a crisis. I consider our situation a crisis. So not only are we in $32 trillion in debt, we barely control the House, and we do not control the Senate, and the ones that do control it are not mentally competent to do their jobs. And I was raised to respect my elders, and I am telling you, I do right now. My grandparents are some of the greatest people I've ever known in my life. But when it comes to being mentally incompetent or having age-related health disorders, people need to retire. And we are in trouble. We're in trouble. Not only do we have Mitch McConnell, we've got Dianne Feinstein, we've got Fetterman from Pennsylvania that should have never been sent there. But we have Joe Biden, who proves to us every single time he gets on television that he is not fit to serve. So we have severe problems right now, and there's a bunch of other people that probably are on that line too, okay? And that's a very serious issue. That is our national...
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like a moment to speak about Mike Casey and his nomination to the director of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center. For those members of the committee who might not know, I originally hired Mike Casey to be the staff director in January of 2016, while I was the vice chairman for the committee. Mike did great work that year, overseeing several classified items, including several counterintelligence issues. And then we were lucky. Senator Warner decided to keep Mike on as staff director when he took over as vice chairman in 2017. Accordingly, we have had the ability over the past 7.5 years to observe Mike, and I find him fully qualified for the position. Mike, well done, and I think we all look forward to your confirmation. Let me ask this question. Can one of you give us a sense of the effectiveness of Russian cyber efforts on Ukraine and our ability to help the Ukrainians in countering them? What else should we do?
Senator, in terms of Russia's capabilities, they have certainly used a number of cyber capabilities against Ukraine. Ukraine gets great credit in terms of how they prepared for what they have expected and experienced from Russian cyberspace by partnering with NATO members, by partnering with various elements of the U.S. government, and also with U.S. industry. They were much more resilient to these cyber attacks. They continue today. And we would expect that Russia will continue to use every cyber capability that they have as part of their unlawful conflict. And wherever we can provide assistance, we should continue to do that, Senator.
Thank you very much. I think that's good advice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Rich.
Senator Feinstein is going to introduce nominee Lee. Senator Feinstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to join in the introductions of Kim Lee, who has been nominated to serve on the Northern District of California. Judge Lee currently serves as a state court judge on the California Superior Court in Alameda County, as many of you know. She has both the skills and the experience needed to serve on the federal bench. I think that's a fair conclusion from this Bay Area. Judge Lee is a graduate of Pomona College. She received her law degree from the Georgetown University Law Center. Early in her career, she gained important insight into the role of a federal judge when she served as a law clerk for two federal judges, Judge Warren Ferguson, excuse me, of the Ninth Circuit, and Judge Jerome Turner of the Western District of Tennessee. She then entered private practice. So you see, she's had a multitude of experience, which I believe serves a judge well. In 2005, she joined the faculty at the University of California Law School in San Francisco, again broadening her views. She served as a professor in the clinical program where she taught law students about the practical application of the law to the real world as it exists. In 2018, she was appointed to serve as a state court judge on the California Superior Court for Alameda County. During her 5 years of judicial service, she has presided in over 70 trials and thousands of hearings in both civil and criminal cases. She is, in fact, well qualified. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Chairman.
Your colleagues, including the Republican leader Mitch McConnell and Senator Dianne Feinstein, who are going through their health diagnosis and facing criticism to step down.
Well, in their position, for instance, take Mitch McConnell. He's the leader of the Republican caucus. What he's able to do at his age is really extraordinary. I mean, and I'm a first-term senator. Even as a second-term senator, I would not be a committee chair or a ranking member. I'd be a junior person trying to get stuff done and fight through the regular order process. I was able to break through that with this gang that came together. But he's in a position to make a real difference at his age, which, if I were majority leader of the Senate, I might reach a different decision too, but I'm not.
Senator, in the excerpts from the book that just came out today, you had some harsh, at least memories of Leader McConnell. Are you at all disappointed by the leadership that you've seen in your Republican Party that you've encountered, particularly with the impeachment trials and in dealing with Trump?
No, actually, I have a great deal of respect for Leader McConnell, and one of the mysteries to me is why he is so unpopular in national polls. I don't understand that. He is the singular reason why we have a conservative Supreme Court. Hope people recognize that. He also is a very effective leader of our group. When you have 50 people, a Republican group, basically 50 of us, every one of whom thinks they ought to be president, how you lead a group like that is not easy, and he has done it with skill and aplomb over a number of years. So I have nothing but the highest respect for him. There's nothing that I know of in the book that McKay Coppins has written that's critical of the leader. I mean, the personal conversations, the private conversations, and his public pronouncements, I've been nothing but more impressed.
In that book, you say that McConnell said that Trump was an idiot. That was the words from McConnell. But one, is that true?
I'm not going to comment on those specific things because Those were not quotes from me. They were quotes from a member of my staff who actually quoted that, so I won't comment about
But you also
that.
called
But I think,
the
but I
folks
think,
who objected on January 6th,
I
said
think-
were disingenuous.
I think
Cruz and Hawley.
I think the point was that with regards to that comment, which is that I think Leader McConnell thought it was not a great idea on the part of Donald Trump to be critical of jury members at the time they were deliberating. It was kind of an obvious point.
And then what about Cruz and Hawley? Because you said they were disingenuous on them objecting.
Oh,
on January 6th.
look, I really do believe that many of the people in leadership, meaning elected officials who claimed that 2020 was a stolen election, that we need to recount the ballots or whatever, other than through the normal judicial process, I think they do better. And I have expressed that numerous times. That's not a surprise. Look, democracy requires belief and credibility in elections, and so people who are casting aspersions on our election process are threatening one of the bases of our very foundation. So, yeah, I was critical of that and continue to be, and I'm sure they wouldn't be surprised to hear it again.
Are you worried another January 6th could
Thank you all. Moments ago, the flags over the Capitol were lowered in memory of Senator Dianne Feinstein. As California's longest-serving senator, Senator Feinstein broke barriers and blazed a trail for women. Her career was, by any standards, historic. Speaking personally, I worked with the senator for quite some time, together on many different bills, but the one that I think stands out was our water legislation. It was historic. It was the first time in California history in more than 25 years that we were able to pass water. It was the WIN Act. And I remember the hours and the nights that we would have to work to try to work through, and the challenges. We come from different parties, we have different philosophies, but we put our state first. At the same time, Barbara Boxer opposed it. It was one of the last votes of the Senate. Had more than 70 votes at the time. And I believe at the end of the day, the trailblazing of the first woman elected mayor, even coming from a different party, inspired women from both sides of the aisle to seek elected office and to have their voices heard. My deepest condolences to her family, her colleagues, and to her staff.
Madam President, first woman President pro tem of the United States Senate. Earlier this morning, we lost a giant in the Senate. Senator Dianne Feinstein was one of the most amazing people who ever graced the Senate, who ever graced the country. She had so many amazing, wonderful qualities wrapped up in one incredible human being. She was smart, she was strong, she was brave, she was compassionate. But maybe the trait that stood out most of all was her amazing integrity. Her integrity was a diamond. Her integrity shone like a beacon across the Senate and across the country for all to see and hopefully emulate. Dianne Feinstein would typically say, when you asked her how was she voting on something, "Let me study this issue before taking a position. Let me go home and read on it." And when she came back, if she believed the cause or the vote was right and vital to many issues she cared about, she not only voted for it, there was no stopping her in getting it done. She would take on any force, any special interest, any opponent with relentless integrity, and would wear those opponents down until she succeeded. Again, her integrity just shone through them, and she won, and she won, and she won, and each time made the country a better place. I saw this up close when she passed the assault weapons ban, a passion of hers after what happened to her in California. The NRA was a relentless, often mean-spirited and chauvinistic foe. They oozed vitriol against her. But they didn't scare her, they didn't stop her, and they failed against her. Like most of her opponents, they failed against her. Her perseverance, her strength, and most of all, her integrity shone through. I was privileged to carry the bill in the House after she had passed it in the Senate. She guided me every step of the way, and her strength and her integrity strengthened all of us who were fighting that uphill fight. And as we went through that bill, it became clear to me, Dianne Feinstein is not like the others. She's in a class of her own. Of course, it wasn't just the assault weapons ban she fought for. Her accomplishments also included championing the Violence Against Women Act, protecting oversight authority during the investigation into U.S. torture, fighting for climate justice, fighting for marriage equality, fighting for reproductive justice. The list goes on and on. As chair of the Intelligence Committee, Dianne fought for what was right, even if it was hard and difficult and took months and years to dig in and find out what actually went wrong. She never stopped. She took on the CIA and asserted Congress's oversight authority during the investigation into United States use of torture. And through all of her accomplishments, this one and all the others, she always displayed the quintessential grace and strength. None of these sons of guns against her ever rattled her. I remember a few years back when a particularly nasty senator tried to put Senator Feinstein down in a condescending, many would say chauvinistic way. She reacted not defensively, but with strength and poise and integrity. And within 3 minutes, she put this colleague in her place, in his place. And by the end of it, everyone in the room on both sides of the aisle was smiling. That was Dianne to a T. Powerful, prepared, unflappable. She had to be. Whenever she did something, she was often the first to do it. She was elected as the first woman president of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, the first woman to serve as mayor of San Francisco, the first woman to serve as U.S. Senator for California, the first woman to chair both the Senate Rules and Intelligence Committees, the first woman member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Our nation will be forever thankful to Senator Feinstein for the accomplishments she fought for. I, too, am personally indebted to Dianne, not just as a colleague, which of course I am in so many ways as a colleague, but as a friend and as a father of 2 daughters. Dianne's work extended far beyond the United States Senate floor, as she gave a voice, a platform, and a leader to women throughout the country for decades. Dianne didn't just push down doors that were closed for women. She held them open for generations of women after her to follow her. She gave a voice, a platform, a model for women across the country who aspire to roles in leadership, in public service, who want to leave their own mark on the world, who want to make this country a better place for others. Today, there are 25 women serving in this chamber, and every one of them would admit they stand on Dianne's shoulders. So Dianne's impact extended far beyond the Senate floor and far beyond politics itself. So today, we grieve. We look at that desk, and we know what we have lost. But we also give thanks. Thanks to someone so rarefied, so brave, so graceful a presence served in this chamber, that someone like that served in this chamber for so many years. In closing, let me just say this. The sign of a leader is someone who dedicates the whole of their spirit for a cause greater than themselves. The sign of a hero is someone who fights for others, who endures for others, no matter the cost, no matter the odds. And the sign of a friend is someone who stands by your side to fight the good fight on the good days and on the bad. Dianne Feinstein was all of this and more. A friend, a hero for so many, a leader who changed the nation, a leader who changed the nature of the Senate and who changed the fabric of the nation, America, for the better. As the nation mourns this tremendous loss, we're comforted in knowing how many mountains Dianne moved, how many lives she impacted, how many glass ceilings she shattered along the way. America is a better place because of Senator Dianne Feinstein. Today I join with my colleagues in mourning our beloved friend and colleague. Yield the floor.
Let us pray. God of our weary years and silent tears, we continue to believe in your sovereignty. As we edge closer to a government shutdown, we choose to believe that you are still in charge. We continue to believe that the hearts of our lawmakers are in your hands, and you turn their plans as you desire. We continue to believe that in everything, you are working for the good of those who love you, and that your purposes will prevail. And Lord, we pause to thank you for the life and legacy of Senator Dianne Feinstein. May her death teach us to number our days, that we may have hearts of wisdom. Have your way, Lord. Have your way. You are the potter. We are the clay. We pray in your loving name. Amen.
You know how we all refer to each other as my friend from whatever state it is. Honestly, frequently that's not true. But Elaine and I were actual friends of Dick and Dianne. Elaine served on a corporate board with Dick for a number of years. When they were in town together, we would frequently have dinner together. Elaine and I got married shortly after the '92 election. And I remember that Dianne gave us a small depiction of the Capitol. I looked at it this morning because it's still on the wall, and remembered our dear colleague as a truly remarkable individual. As the Majority Leader has pointed out, she was an incredibly effective person at every line, at every level, and she was at all of those levels on the way to the Senate. Those of us who were fortunate to call Dianne our colleague can say we served alongside the longest-serving female senator in American history. Dianne was a trailblazer in her beloved home state of California, and our entire nation are better for her dogged advocacy and diligent service. Over the past 3 decades, the senior senator from California was also the steady hand leading sensitive and consequential work as head of the Intelligence Committee and the Judiciary Committee. Her name became synonymous with advocacy for women and with issues from water infrastructure to counter drug efforts. Of course, the first woman to lead her hometown's Board of Supervisors and then govern as mayor was making history and making a difference long before she came to the Senate. And as much as this institution and the American people will remember Dianne's devoted public service, as I indicated earlier, Elaine and I will also remember and cherish a friendship of 30 years we were fortunate to share with Dianne and Dick. So today I know the entire Senate family is gathering around Senator Feinstein's loyal staff. Our thoughts and prayers are with Dianne's daughter, Catherine, her granddaughter, Eileen, the entire Feinstein family, and with all who mourn our dear colleague and friend.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I get started, I would like to say how sorry I was to hear about Senator Dianne Feinstein passing this morning. Didn't agree with her on anything, but she was very kind to me every time I saw her, and I missed that up here. Madam Speaker.
I'm excited. Let's go. Squeeze in second, please. Okay, keep moving guys. Keep moving in place, Stacey. That's great. It's going to be great. I know. It's going to be great.
That's great.
It is going to be great. Senator Schumer, what's your reaction to what's happening in the House
Just
today?
not answering questions, just taking pictures on this great occasion. Okay. And she's going to be a great, great senator. I'm excited, happy, thrilled that she is here. We know each other through Emily's list.
Senator Schumer, do you want to
Okay, now we're going to bring family.
Senator Butler, do you have any comment about your first day?
Having a great day.
And she has a great mom.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Butler, will you
Thanks,
serve
everybody.
a full Senate term in next year's election? Will you run for a full Senate term
Thanks, everybody.
in next
Thank
year's
you,
election?
folks.
Thank you. You guys can hang out. We're gonna put the room back together. Thank you.
So, yeah, wait.
Chair lays before the Senate a certificate of appointment to fill the unexpected term created by the death of the late Senator Dianne Feinstein of the state of California. The certificate, the chair is advised, is in the form suggested by the Senate. Hearing no objection, the reading of the certificate will be waived and it will be printed in full in the record. If the senator designate will now present herself at the desk, the chair will administer the oath of office. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. Say, do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which you are about to enter, so help you God?
I will.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Senator Laphonza Butler.
Good afternoon. I am just honored beyond belief to be asked by Leader Schumer today to offer some reflections on just my first whole day standing in, sitting in the seat of Senator Dianne Feinstein. As mayor, she of San Francisco, first woman mayor of San Francisco, to come into the United States Senate in the Year of the Woman, to lead all of the legislative battles that you have heard and have read over the last few days and just here today. Senator Feinstein is an example of the gift of Emily's List. She had the courage to want to run. She worked hard to win, and when she won, she did the work to change the world. And to be able to sit in her seat, knowing that I will never be able to fill her shoes, is the honor of a lifetime. I remember when I first met Senator Feinstein, 2009, in her district office in San Francisco. She was convening stakeholders to talk about some important issues relative to immigration. And she brought us a group of community leaders and labor leaders into her district office. And the first thing that she did was not tell us what was going on in Washington. She didn't tell us the role she was playing in negotiating language or bills. She asked us how the community was feeling. And every story and every interaction that I have had with Senator Feinstein before her passing and even since has reminded me very much of her approach to the work, starting with the people of California. It's definitely the example that I intend to have learned from and want to offer my colleagues on behalf of the legacy of Senator Dianne Feinstein. Thank you, Leader Schumer, for inviting me.
Thank you. You're going to do great. She is the greatest already. Thank you, everybody. Now my colleagues have to go.
Now we will hear remarks from the President of the United States, Joe R. Biden.
And staff of the remarkable Dianne Feinstein. Within Dianne's very soul lay the defining trait of great leaders, character. Over 15 years in the Senate, plus another decade in the vice presidency, and now the presidency, again and again I saw her character in action, up close and personal. She was always tough, prepared, rigorous, and compassionate. And she always served the people of California and our nation for the right reasons, to make life better for everyday people and ensure America stood for freedom, transparency, and justice at home and abroad. We had the honor of a front row seat to her character, the Judiciary Committee. In that role, among her many accomplishments throughout her distinguished career, she turned passion into purpose, to lead the fight to ban assault weapons, to protect our civil liberties, to strengthen our national security, safeguard our environment, and so much more. Often the only woman in the room, she also mentored generations of women and men alike to imagine a bigger, more hopeful future for themselves, for the country, and for the world. On this day of remembrance, reflect on the many ways that such a pioneer made history and build a legacy that will benefit Americans for generations to come, and that's not an exaggeration. At the same time, our family reflects on the life of a kind and loyal friend. To Catherine, we hope you find the strength and the truth found in Scripture. As is the mother, so is the daughter. And to the rest of Dianne's family, we send our love and hope you find comfort in the knowledge that she and I are now together again. And to the nation today, may Dianne's life be a reminder that the institutions of our democracy do not only depend on the Constitution that governs our nation, which she swore an oath to uphold and defend. Our democracy depends on the constitution of our character as a people, on the habits of our heart and our mind that lie deep within us. Thank God we have Dianne showing us the way by the power of her example. God bless the great American hero. She was something else, and she was a dear friend. God bless Dianne Feinstein.
Now it is my honor to introduce the Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala D. Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Breed. To Catherine, Eileen, Rick, and the entire family, and to all the distinguished guests who are gathered, it is my honor to be here with you today. Dianne Feinstein was an icon of California. She was an American patriot, a giant of the Senate, and a dear friend to Doug and me. She was a student of history, a gifted, and I will add, very generous artist. Many of us are collectors of Dianne's work. And a passionate leader. Simply put, she was a force. To many of you, she was supervisor, mayor, senator, and then chairman. She was recognized around the world as a leader, a standard bearer of America and of American values. Yet, of course, to Catherine and Eileen, she held perhaps the most important titles of all, mother and grandmother. So to Catherine and Eileen and Rick, and to the entire family, Doug and my prayers are with you. And I don't have to tell you that it is not easy. It is not easy when a loved one lives a life of public service, especially a person as hardworking and selfless as Dianne Feinstein. So to you, the family, we thank you for all the sacrifices you have knowingly and unknowingly made over the years that allowed her to serve. And on behalf of the people of the United States, we are grateful to you. As a public servant, Dianne had the courage to take on the many tough fights, even when she was faced with fierce opposition and political peril, and especially when her work was in defense of the Constitution and the security of the American people. Dianne commanded respect, and she gave respect. She was a serious and gracious person who welcomed debate and discussion, but always required that it would be well-informed and studied. And I believe that this city, where she started, had a lot to do with that. To the uneducated here, I will let you in on a well-known secret. San Francisco politics is rough and tumble. Some even say a bare-knuckled sport. And this city requires its elected officials to engage on a daily basis in complex discussions with informed constituents who will raise the most interesting of local issues, no matter if you are walking through the Presidio or attending an event at Delancey Street. And this environment, I do believe, guided Dianne's style of leadership, even after she reached the heights of national and global power. Dianne diligently focused on the impacts to real people, ideology, substance, not ship, results, not rhetoric. When I was sworn into the Senate in 2017, it was Dianne who welcomed me. She invited me to her Senate hideaway. There, with one hand, she presented me with a glass of California Chardonnay, and with the other hand, a binder full of her draft bills. And true to her mayoral roots, she was deeply immersed in the details of each bill and how each would play on the streets of our beloved state. Some of my fondest recent memories of Dianne are of our time together in a SCIF, a secure meeting room in the United States Senate. Every week, members of the Senate Intelligence Committee would walk into that wood-paneled room, no cameras, no public, no devices. Senators of both parties who would take off their jackets and literally roll up their sleeves, putting aside partisanship to discuss what was in the best interests of our national security. There, we would review classified materials and receive updates from the heads of the CIA, our intelligence community, and the United States military. And God forbid if one of them gave an evasive answer. Dianne, with her trademark grin, would pause, lift up her memo, glance knowingly at the others of us on the dais, and question the witness in a way this former prosecutor always admired. In that room, there was give and take, substantive debate, and problem solving. And that was quintessential Dianne at her best. So as I close, allow me to turn back the clock 30 years to today, November 3rd, 1992. I was a young prosecutor at the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. And on that evening, I left my home in Oakland, got in my Toyota Corolla, and drove across the Bay Bridge to the city. I pulled into the Fairmont Hotel, and I walked up to a huge and packed ballroom. There on stage stood Dianne and Barbara Boxer, hands raised in what the nation would name the Year of the Woman. We celebrated an historic feat. We were the first state to elect 2 female senators. And that night we celebrated Dianne, who the next day would take office as the first female senator ever for the great state of California. Fast forward to today, when I again traveled to the city to celebrate Dianne, this time from Washington, D.C., on Air Force Two. Dianne, the women of America have come a long way. Our country has come a long way. And you helped move the ball forward, and our nation salutes you, Dianne.
Now it is my honor to introduce the Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala D. Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Breed. To Catherine, Eileen, Rick, and the entire family, and to all the distinguished guests who are gathered, it is my honor to be here with you today. Dianne Feinstein was an icon of California. She was an American patriot, a giant of the Senate, and a dear friend to Doug and me. She was a student of history, a gifted, and I will add, very generous artist. Many of us are collectors of Dianne's work. And a passionate leader. Simply put, she was a force. To many of you, she was supervisor, mayor, senator, and then chairman. She was recognized around the world as a leader, a standard bearer of America and of American values. Yet, of course, to Catherine and Eileen, she held perhaps the most important titles of all, mother and grandmother. So to Catherine and Eileen and Rick and to the entire family, Doug and my prayers are with you. And I don't have to tell you that it is not easy. It is not easy when a loved one lives a life of public service, especially a person as hardworking and selfless as Dianne Feinstein. So to you, the family, we thank you for all the sacrifices you have knowingly and unknowingly made over the years that allowed her to serve. And on behalf of the people of the United States, we are grateful to you. As a public servant, Dianne had the courage to take on the many tough fights, even when she was faced with fierce opposition and political peril, and especially when her work was in defense of the Constitution and the security of the American people. Dianne commanded respect, and she gave respect. She was a serious and gracious person who welcomed debate and discussion, but always required that it would be well-informed and studied. And I believe that this city, where she started, had a lot to do with that. To the uneducated here, I will let you in on a well-known secret. San Francisco politics is rough and tumble. Some even say a bare-knuckled sport. And this city requires its elected officials to engage on a daily basis in complex discussions with informed constituents who will raise the most interesting of local issues. No matter if you are walking through the Presidio or attending an event at Delancey Street. And this environment, I do believe, guided Dianne's style of leadership, even after she reached the heights of national and global power. Dianne diligently focused on the impacts to real people. Ideology, substance, not ship, results, not rhetoric. When I was sworn into the Senate in 2017, it was Dianne who welcomed me. She invited me to her Senate hideaway. There, with one hand, she presented me with a glass of California Chardonnay, and with the other hand, a binder full of her draft bills. And true to her mayoral roots, she was deeply immersed in the details of each bill and how each would play on the streets of our beloved state. Some of my fondest recent memories of Dianne are of our time together in a skiff, a secure meeting room in the United States Senate. Every week, members of the Senate Intelligence Committee would walk into that wood-paneled room, no cameras, no public, no devices. Senators of both parties who would take off their jackets and literally roll up their sleeves, putting aside partisanship to discuss what was in the best interest of our national security. There, we would review classified materials and receive updates from the heads of the CIA, our intelligence community, and the United States military. And God forbid if one of them gave an evasive answer. Dianne, with her trademark grin, would pause, lift up her memo, glance knowingly at the others of us on the dais, and question the witness in a way this former prosecutor always admired. In that room, there was give and take, substantive debate, and problem solving. And that was quintessential Dianne at her best. So as I close, allow me to turn back the clock 30 years to Tuesday, November 3rd, 1992. I was a young prosecutor at the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. And on that evening, I left my home in Oakland, got in my Toyota Corolla, and drove across the Bay Bridge to the city. I pulled into the Fairmont Hotel, and I walked up to a huge and packed ballroom. There on stage stood Dianne and Barbara Boxer, hands raised in what the nation would name the Year of the Woman. We celebrated an historic feat. We were the first state to elect 2 female senators. And that night we celebrated Dianne, who the next day would take office as the first female senator ever for the great state of California. Fast forward to today, when I again traveled to the city to celebrate Dianne, this time from Washington, D.C., on Air Force Two. Dianne, the women of America have come a long way. Our country has come a long way. And you helped move the ball forward, and our nation salutes you, Dianne.